Tiny stones, tiny names, dates so close together they almost touch. A lamb carved in marble, a verse that tries just barely to make sense of the unbearable. These are the resting places of children, and their epitaphs whisper grief that time cannot soften. Welcome back to Have Fun at Chronicles, where even the quietest stones tell stories that linger. I'm your host, Candy, and tonight we welcome on the smallest graves. The ones decorated with lambs, angels, and lullabies. The ones where parents carved poetry because it was the only thing left they could give. These epitaphs don't preach or joke. They don't hide behind clever words. They're raw, they're love, carved in loss. Across England and America, the lamb became the symbol of innocence. On children's graves, it's everywhere, curled in stone on top of the tiny markers. Sleep on, sweet babe, and take thy rest. God called thee home. He thought it best. The rhyme sounds gentle, like something whispered over a cradle, but when you realize it's carved above a grave, those words hit harder. It's the sound of parents trying to make peace with something they'll never understand. Sometimes the stones say almost nothing, a name, 2 dates, and barely a year between them, sometimes only a few days. The stones are small, and so are the lives they represent, and yet they're often the most carefully kept graves. Fresh flowers, tiny toys, or smooth stones placed by strangers who just can't walk by without stopping. In Devon, one epitaph reads, "The cup was bitter, the sting severe, to part our child we love so dear. God only knows how we miss him here." Simple verse, but full of heartbreak. Others read more like bedtime prayers and eulogies. "Sleep, little darling, sleep so sweet. Angels guard your rest complete." These aren't for the dead. They're for the living, parents, siblings, and visitors still trying to say goodnight one last time. In older cemeteries, you can sometimes find entire rows of lamb-marked graves, children from the same family lost in the same year, measles, fever, diphtheria, diseases that wiped out whole households before medicine could save them. The stones line up like tiny echoes, for each one an ache carved into history, and yet they stand together. Little lives that might have been forgotten, remembered, not just by name, but by verse. Child epitaphs remind us that grief is universal. The words might change, the centuries pass, but the ache doesn't. Parents then and parents now still reach for meaning when there isn't any. The act of carving those stone became its own kind of survival. I usually don't cry in cemeteries, but the child stones get me every time. There's something about the innocence of them, how someone tried so hard to write comfort into tragedy. And the lambs? Beautiful, yes, but also haunting. If I were a little ghost, I'd be like, really? A sheep? Give me something cool. But all jokes aside, those graves say more about love than most novels ever could. Every parent who's ever lost a child left a piece of themselves on those stones. It's just like they were saying, I can't keep you, but I can keep your name, and that's powerful. Because even centuries later, strangers still stop, still read, and still feel the same sting. When you walk through a cemetery, the adult stones tell stories of what people did. The children's stones tell stories of what could have been. They don't preach or plead, they just exist quietly. And sometimes that quiet is what hurts the most. But maybe it's also what keeps them alive, because someone once cared enough to carve them into memory. Here are 3 creepy facts to haunt your day. The lamb motif. By the late 1800s, lambs were the most common symbol on children's grave, representing innocence and sacrifice. Multiple names, one stone. During epidemics, families sometimes lost several children in a single week, buried together under one verse. Tiny coffins. Archaeologists studied 19th century cemeteries, often found child coffins barely a foot long, heartbreaking proof of how common infant loss was. So the next time you wander through a graveyard, look for the smallest stones, the ones shaped like lambs, the ones with lullabies. They may be quiet, but they're still speaking, because love that strong never really fades. It just whispers through the grass. Until next time, stay curious and always, always stay haunted.